Gustave is a character that can be defined with one word: responsibility. From the moment we meet him, the weight of his responsibility is shown to us. His responsibility to Lumiere, to his apprentices, to Maëlle, to Emma, to Sophie, and even to the expedition. Now, in this video, we're going to take more of an emotional dive into Gustave's character, trying to understand the emotions that come with the burdens and responsibilities a character such as him carries, his breaking points, his resolve, and his growth. Warning, this video will contain heavy spoilers for the game. I suggest you finish the game before watching. Otherwise, feel free to grab a snack, some food, a drink, and enjoy. I stream regularly on Twitch, and I'm working to grow my channel here on YouTube. A small like and comment would really help. Let us begin. We meet Gustave in the very first seconds of the game. He's the man looking over the horizon, wearing a blue suit and looking at a rose on the bench. He seems to be pacing, unsure of what to say or do, before he has to see Sophie, his ex-lover, that is getting prepared for her gamage. Maëlle shows up immediately, mocking him for it. And we're sort of introduced to a parental relationship between Gustave and Maëlle. He is her guardian, alongside with his sister Emma. When we interact with people in Lumiere as Gustave, most of them praise him. It seems like Gustave has so much pressure on his shoulders, whether it's from Maëlle, Sophie, Emma, his apprentices, the whole of Lumiere, the expedition. Everyone is depending on him. He is seen as this constant. And as we know, constants break. Gustave isn't just a character that we get to play as, he is a symbol. Now, besides responsibility, I would also define Gustave as legacy. Now, this scene with the gommage happening is very heart-wrenching to watch, especially when you put yourselves in Gustave's shoes. The time he's lost with Sophie, the regrets, Sophie depending on him to stay with her until the end. This scenery is both sad and beautiful at the same time. It also reminds Gustave of what he's fighting for. It reminds him that he has a purpose. He has a reason for joining the expedition. The promises he has made to all these people. Even at the expedition party, he is the only person who seems not enjoying his time. And I would argue that Gustave was scared. He was worried, he was anxious. Even though he may not seem like it because he's this great man that has invented all these great things. He's terrified and you can see it in his face. He does not want to celebrate. He does not want to talk about Sophie. He doesn't want to think. He doesn't want to work. Whereas everyone else is basically either partying, working, or talking about how excited they are to defeat the Paintress. It's only Gustave that doesn't have any thoughts really. He's treated as this hero. But all of that changes as soon as they touch on shore. He freezes, shocked and terrified by the white-haired man and the Nevrons that attack him in the expedition. From the shock, we see how Gustave is unable to move, and one of his friends, Lucien, dies trying to save him, and everyone around him is just gone. Gustave wakes up in a strange place. A waterfall can be heard behind him, and he seems disoriented, lost. Eventually we arrive at a place that I could only define as a corpse pit. where all the expedition has died. And what we can see from these corpses is that they're all basically drained out of their chroma. And it's kind of a first introduction into chroma as a life essence. But we'll discuss that another time. When Gustave sees his friend Catherine seated and dead amongst the pile, he sits right next to her and prepares to end it all. At this point, if you think about what he's feeling, everyone is basically gone. Catherine, Margot, Lucien, their Captain Alan, Lune, and Ciel, and most importantly, Mayel. As soon as he's ready to end it all, a voice cuts through.
You do that, we both die.
Lune shows up right next to him, out of nowhere. She tries to convince him to stop, to not do this, to not give up, but Gustave insists. He keeps repeating to her that it's over. They're doomed. Everyone's gone. He doesn't even try to look at her direction. He's stuck in what happened at the beach. He's tired. He's broken. Lune insists that Gustave cannot give up, essentially shocking him back to wake up to the reality that they are still alive and they need to continue, reminding him that when one falls, we continue. Lune here strikes us as a logical, headstrong leader, immediately pulling Gustave back to reality and into the now. Lune reminds him of an immediate threat that they both have to take down. She attempts the Lumina converter that was created by Gustave, and it works. This brings a sliver of hope to Gustave, but clearly not enough. He still feels destroyed, saddened, despair. As they press on, they find Leo, one of the expeditioners who's running away from something. Immediately, however, Leo is struck by an Évêque, a boss-type Nevron that sets its sights on Lune and Gustave, blocking their path. Gustave and Luna take it down and move on, not even having a moment to mourn the loss of Leo. We then find a message drawn on the tree or wall that tells them that Mayel is in an X location, but it was not signed. Lune tells Gustave that it could be a trap, which is highly likely, and I found myself agreeing with her, given that there are protocols to leave messages like this. As Lune explains, of course. Gustave, however, insists that they go, giving Lune the ultimatum to either break the protocol of never traveling alone or signing off messages. Gustave shows us the difference between himself and Lune. It's big. Lune is logical and Gustave is emotional. As much as they both are similar people that love to research and study and understand things, Gustave's an engineer and Lune strikes him more of a scientist, I would say, or a researcher. Yet, Lune is way more practical than Gustave is. She's orderly, not instinctive as much as Gustave is. Gustave is eager, instinctive, emotional, and the contrast works well for these two, despite their arguments. Needing to camp, they do have a small quarrel in the camp as well. Both clearly still traumatized, but they behave differently about it. Gustave apologizes first nonetheless, as Gustave tells Luna that the beach incident was not her fault, to which she was blaming herself, because she insisted on landing in that location. He tries to console her, but he's still thinking that they should go after Mayel, to which they argue again. Luna insists they think every step through, and Gustave is eager to find Mayel, worried for her safety. Luna is just worried that something like the beach is going to happen again and it's going to be her fault. Now, it's important to also mention that Gustave sometimes focuses on something. It becomes harder for him to notice what others are saying. It's hard for Gustave to listen to Luna here because he cannot stop thinking about what happened on the beach as well. Watching his friends dying and unable to do anything, he worries about it. He cares for Mayel as he is her guardian, but he's also blinded by this care to see that the dangers that they still do not know still exist around them, and what could happen to him and Lune before they even reach Mayel. And of course, Lune even tells him, I do not want to bring Mayel your corpse. She is right, and I'm glad he listens to her in this point. It was night and they couldn't travel, so they had to wait until day. And then later, of course, we get the famous line, fuck the mission, which Lune reminds Gustave that he swore an oath. When one falls, we continue. Which is like a mantra in every expedition almost, to remind them what they're fighting for. But when this was happening, Gustave was unable to see that because he's so worried about Mayel, the only person that he cares about, the only family he has left. Sophie's gone. Emma and his apprentices are people he's not going to see again because he's going to have his gommage. The only person he could be around is Mayel. The only person he could care for, the only person he could give a future to is Mayel. As Lune snaps more sense back into him, their dynamic also improves greatly from here. They bounce off each other's thinking and find middle grounds going forward. And I like that in the game. Future-wise, they seem to be more cooperative, less hostile towards each other. I wouldn't say they were hostile to begin with, they were just a bit aggressive, I would say. I highly agreed with Looney here, as I said. They know nothing about this place. They were ambushed and it could happen again, and the safest choice would be to wait the night out and move during the day. And I found Gustave to be eager. Now, this is when I really was 100% sure Gustave does hyper focus on one thing. But it's also hard to not agree with both of them immediately. I am someone who overthinks, and if the message itself was a little suspicious, not signed, and a different writing, and we just saw Leo dying coming from the same place that message was written, are we even sure it's not the white-haired man again, luring us to a trap? I think Lune made the right choice here, but it's good that they both agreed to find a middle ground. Search for Mael, but don't rush into it. Let's go during the day, let's camp, let's prepare ourselves in case something bad happens. Now thankfully she was wrong. We end up in the flying waters where we actually do find Mael sheltered in the manor. Now the manor is this mysterious mansion found all across the continent. I plan on talking about it and its origins. Before they approach it, there is a hut that they enter, to which Lune is very careful about entering, and Gustave is just rolling his eyes like he's sick of her already. It was a funny interaction. It was a very human interaction, and I really liked that. It made so much sense for them not to always just be on great terms. They are opposing personalities after all, even though they share the same interests, both with very strong opinions on what they should be doing. I quite enjoy Gustave from this point on. The moment they are swept within the manor, the two are amazed at how well put it is. Clearly, this manor belongs to humans and not Nevrons. We find Mael in one of the rooms, and the scene between her and Gustave, it just relieves my anxiety. I genuinely was so happy that Mael was alive, and seeing this almost brought a tear to my eye.
Gustave? Are you real? Well, you sure smell real enough.
No, I don't.
Now, once we find Mael, Gustave's demeanor starts to change onwards, so does Lune. But in contrast to Gustave, the change is great. He's hopeful, brave, he even makes silly jokes here and there with Lune and other people. Lune, of course, someone who was already setting aside her emotions and what happened way long before he did. They meet the gestural Noko outside the manor, and Gustave here sort of laughs at Lune's excitement, and that he has to remind her of the mission now. Given that she was quite happy to learn more about the Gestrals and see their village, he's the one that has to remind her of the mission. But of course, the objective is to reach the Paintress. And to reach the Paintress, they would need a boat. Little did they know there is a sea separating the continent from the Paintress, or the monolith. Noko suggests that they go to the Gestral village to get themselves a boat, to which Lune, of course, is very excited, and Gustave comments something super silly at her. Now, as I mentioned, Gustave is a very goal-focused person, or at least objective-focused. When tasked with something, or when he's seriously considering something, he's ultra-focused and nothing gets in his way. We see this even when he sees Expedition 58's remains and their ship. He's eager to keep moving and find Mael, but Lune wants to analyze what happened. But I think that's a great thing, and I can relate to him greatly in this. When I'm thinking of a project or a video or a script or an idea, I hard focus on it so much and allow it to consume everything until I'm able to see it through. I would love to know if there are others like me in this case. If you have similar experience or can explain what this behavior indicates, I would love to hear more in the comments. But let us continue. We then move further in the flying waters, going through some fractured parts of Old Lumiere, and a creature greets us in the beginning, right? It's this big monkey-looking creature that just jumps away. Eventually, after some exploration, we find a field with a singular red rose in the center. Now, I couldn't help but think of that rose being Sophie. That's her symbol. We meet Sophie when she's having a gommage. Gustave gives Sophie a red rose on her gommage. And the moment Gustave plucks it, we see an erased version of Sophie sat by it. I think and I assume no one saw her sitting there. We just saw a glimpse of her memory, perhaps? This could mean many things. I immediately assumed that there has to be something there that relates to Sophie. I had thought that perhaps when they gommaged, they are turned into nevrons. Now, I will explain this further in another video about nevrons and who created them, but we are immediately attacked by this creature as soon as we pluck the rose. The creature's name is Goblu. Now, after defeating it, Gustave moves in for the kill, but Lune stops him immediately, asking him to wait, due to how the Nevron seemed actually peaceful and not hostile. I felt horrible here. I thought we were attacking a mindless Sophie. A mindless Sophie that has turned into a Nevron. Mayel, however, attempts to reach for the Nevron, and Gustave immediately starts shooting when the Goblu retreats. Lune argues that they need to be careful with these things, and Gustave, with that of course, is worried about Mayel. He feels responsible and he's her guardian, so he gets angry at Lune and mocks her a little bit, which I found funny. The group makes camp once they're outside of the Flying Waters. Gustave goes to console Mayel and explains how the deaths at the beach were so sudden. The gommage being an expected thing, the Nevrons they've prepared for, but not this. They both open up about having nightmares, and he warns Mayel to never face the white-haired man, to run as soon as she sees him. To which she says the same thing, joking around and telling him that he's old and she's probably gonna run faster than him. They both laugh and banter in the night and find Lune playing her guitar, to which he says that he missed that. He hasn't seen her play in a long time. Gustave notices how happy and excited Lune is, but she also notices how hopeful he is. And it is clear that the shock is a bit wearing off. He changes his motivation from just doing the mission now to doing it for them, the ones who died, the ones who did not make it this far. This shift is striking me as a way of coping. It is somewhat good because it helps Gustave relieve himself from the shock and what he was about to do to himself. Now he has a purpose, he has a renewed purpose. And the night ends with us writing in his journal so that one day his apprentices could read his adventures. Now going through the Gestural Village, we do take a while as we have to go through the ancient sanctuary in which we find some silly things like Petanque and another mime. But the important thing here is how Gustave has gotten his comedy back after interacting with the Gestrals more. They call him the mustache, or mustachio. Admire his arm and he becomes the sort of mascot for the group who has issues communicating with Gestrals than say Lune or Mayel. Gustave then shares some thoughts about the Gestrals and their inventions. It is a bit clear that he's not gelling well with them. He probably prefers humans more than Gestrals. Perhaps it is that Gustave does not like what he does not understand. I thought about this and it could be that. He's not keen or open to thinking that there might be peaceful Nevrons as much as Lune is. When we meet the first white Nevron, very early on in the Spring Meadows, Gustave is so against a Nevron being peaceful. And Lune, however, is very curious. She's neither here or there. She wants knowledge. She even says this, I think, at one point. Lune, I think at some point mentions that this is a war of information. That speaks to her character the most. And he's also not nicest when he's talking to Gestrals, but it's also understandable. His way of thinking since the beach has changed. He assumes that everything could be dangerous. He warns Mayel all the time. He worries about her a lot, as a father or an older brother would, and it is adorable to see. Mayel has always been a foster child, and Gustave is the only constant in her life. And this he knows as well. He tries to be that for her all the time, trying to be present so that Mayel does not feel the way she feels all the time when she loses people. Now, when we reach the Gestural Village, he's obviously not the most liked person there. But after meeting Ciel, Gustave seems even joyful than before. Now there's 4 of them alive. That increases their chances of taking down the paintress together. And it's Ciel, Sophie's close friend, someone who's worked with him on Aquafarm, someone he knows and cares about. Now, back at camp, when we have the individual dialogues, Gustave talks to Mayel and tells her that maybe she should remain at the Gestural Village where it's safe for her. Now, I never saw this on my first playthrough, and I'm recording this on a New Game Plus. I wanted to make sure that I explore every nook and cranny of these moments that we get from Gustave, as we do get really short time with him. The dialogue was, of course, very short. It was just him grunting disapprovingly of her choices and her reaffirming them. This took me back when Emma told Gustave right before they left that they are her guardians, not her jailers. She can make her own choices. Gustave struggles a bit with that because he cares way too much for Maëlle and he worries so much for her. He sees her as a child, which she is. Maëlle is only 16 years old, but is also a quite skilled fighter, if not better than most of them. But she is regardless still a child, a naive teenager, and emotions rule over her judgment. Gustave is right to feel protective even with other members of the camp. Of course, none of them will ever harm Maëlle, this we know, but he will forever be watching over her, and that is his main goal above everything else. Now this brings me to Gustave's relationship with his apprentices, the young bright minds of Lumiere who were assigned to make him a freaking arm. It's a very powerful tool, and Gustave loves teaching these kids, so we can see that every time he writes in the journal, he's always remembering them. The future of Lumiere, for those who come after, he's fighting for them. That does include Maëlle as well. It is so easy to get overwhelmed when we have so much responsibility to many people, especially when you are responsible for children and wanting to see their dreams and hopes come to life, wishing they could have a better life than yours so that they may never have to deal with a gommage or an expedition, at least for a lifetime. Gustave then heads to talk to Ciel, who has been oddly silent since they left the village. Ciel tells him that she's been having bad memories and would rather not talk about it. She reminisces about the project that they did called Aquafarm 3, and from what they briefly mention, I assume it was a project to farm fishes and feed people in Lumiere. Ciel comments that she didn't feel like they did that much, and that him and Sophie were inseparable. But Gustave reassures her they had an impact. And at this point, I was very happy to see Ciel being there for him as someone that knows him so well from before. Another highlighting moment for him is that he reassures himself and Ciel that they did help out in Lumiere and that they are impactful in other people's lives. Now, when Maëlle has her first waking nightmare, it was so sudden. We see Ciel talking about Eski and how excited she is, and then suddenly Maëlle is awoken from this nightmare, hyperventilating and scared and worried, and Gustave and Ciel rush to her, trying to calm her down. And she talks about the white-haired man and the woman with the mask, and Luna is trying to extract information from her while it's still being fresh, while Ciel and Gustave are asking Luna to calm down and let her breathe. Ciel, of course, strikes me here as a gentler person. Emotional, but gentler, and not as emotional as Gustave. Now, I am working on a very big video on Ciel. I find her to be the most underrated character. Her video is going to be way bigger than anyone else's video. I'm probably very biased towards Ciel. But in any regards, Gustave insists to Lune that she should leave Maëlle alone for the moment. And she does. And Maëlle calms down a bit. As we venture forth, we're told to visit Eski, a creature of myth and legend. And that Eski is going to take us across the ocean. He is going to be our boat. Now, there are nice moments here and there where Gustave checks up on Maëlle, sees how she's doing and all that. And of course, we got the password from Golgra in the Gestural village. And when we get to the cave, Ciel teasingly tells Gustave to shout the password like Golgra asked. And this scene is just so hilarious. It's probably one of my favorite scenes, actually. And I like it because I love how Ciel and Gustave are together. They're great friends. You could see it. The way she teases him, the way he ends up embarrassing himself to this poor Gestural and feels horrible after it too. It's a very nice interaction, I have to say. But I also noticed that Gustave seems so out of his element around Nevrons, Gestrals, and even Eski. He's almost acting out of fear around them. I don't quite know how to label it, but the others are more carefree than Gustave, even Lune. When Lune first hears about Gestrals, she's like this little child. Ciel has always been like that. The moment she meets Eski and he says, "Hello, mon ami," the moment he sees her and she's like, "Hello, mon ami," and everyone's like, "Ciel." It's really interesting that everyone has these things except for Gustave. Even Maëlle had that with Noko. But Gustave is more reserved, guarded, and you could see it in him. He's wary. But I see it as though he's scared of things that he doesn't understand. After the meeting with SK, he still is wary and suspicious. But eventually SK agrees to help us and we have to find Flory for him. Flory, which is in Stone Wave Cliffs, the dreaded place. The next time at camp though, we see Mael and Gustave tossing rocks, joking around and talking. Little did they know this is going to be the last time Gustave and Mael are going to be doing that together. This scene is so important, and I bet also for Mael. For some reason, when Gustave is talking to Mael, and he indeed admits that he does get lost when he's around things that he doesn't understand, but when there are things that he does understand, it helps him stay focused. And I like that about him, and I found that very obvious maybe, or I don't know if I nitpicked it or I found it very obvious about him, but it's nice to see him say that as well. Now, we wake up the next morning and Mael does have another nightmare. She has a very cryptic nightmare that she doesn't tell anyone about, of course. But let's move on to the cliffs. Now, the cliffs was one of the dreaded moments that I did not expect was going to happen. We had a very nice moment with Ciel and Gustave, her flirting with him not understanding it. But I did not expect that this would be how Gustave dies. I never thought he'd just die so quickly. It happened way too quick for me to realize that he's actually dead. I kept thinking of so many theories that he wouldn't be dead, that it's a mirror world, that the white-haired man is actually Gustave from the future, or like anything. But he is dead. He's dead physically, but not in spirits. He's gone, vanished, but he's not really dead. Now, in this scene, the way he promised Mael that he'd run when he sees the white-haired man, and he doesn't. He stays and protects her, wanting her to run instead. I feel like Gustave would have survived if someone had intervened, and that someone we're going to talk about in another video, aka Verso. Now, with that, I know some people have their own theories about that. I generally have a very strong theory about why Verso did not help Gustave. It is a little bit manipulative, but Verso has a very big goal, so I think he was seeing everything not for what it is, but everything for what it is painted as, let's say. But we'll dive into that later. I will make a video about Verso, and it's going to be a long one too. Of course, everyone is shocked that Gustave is dead, especially Mael, her guardian, his older brother. It's so hard to watch her punching SK and hugging him and crying. And then when she's asleep, Lune and Ciel are sitting together by the fire, and Lune is just in this panic. I've never seen her like this. No one, I think, has ever seen her like this. She panics, saying that they should leave things for the other expeditions, that it's over, the Lumina Converter is lost. But Ciel brings her back, grounds her into reality. They're fine, they're alive. Gustave would not want this. Gustave would want them to keep Mael safe, to continue. Now, as they were consoling each other, or Ciel consoling Lune, Verso shows up. And then Verso just replaces Gustave, just like that. But he does give purpose to Mael. Now, I will dive into Verso's reasonings and his manipulation. I was someone who really disliked Verso when I first met him, did not trust him. It wasn't until the end that I understood that I was wrong. Now, Gustave leaves a legacy when he dies. Gustave doesn't just vanish and die, he transforms into something greater. He becomes a symbol, a driving force for Mael, taught Mael how to be a human, how to feel, how to cope, how to deal with bad things. Even though he doesn't know how to do it himself, he taught Mael so many things that she'll never forget. He taught things to the apprentices. He taught things to Lune, that not everything is a protocol and she has to follow it. He comforted Ciel. He comforted Ciel when she remembered a very bad memory after meeting SK. Gustave showed us that being protective can be beautiful, even flawed. That being afraid does not make you weak, that focusing on hope even when broken is how you survive. He probably has the best quote in this game. For those who come after. And now we carry that with us. It is such a great way to introduce a character and end it that way. It's sudden, it's shocking, but he stays with you throughout the game. Gustave never leaves us, he's always there. And I don't know if you guys felt this as well. Every time something happened, I always felt as though Gustave was there with us as well. Everything we did was for him, and everything we did was to remember him, and he's there in spirit, very powerfully so. I never once forgot about Gustave playing the whole game, and I don't think I ever will. The way the character was made and the way it was executed was so well done. And Gustave will remain that, a symbol of responsibility to everyone. And that's it really on my Gustave video. My next video is probably going to be about CL. And I hope you like it, because CL I find to be one of the most tragic characters. Very underrated. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know. I am really in this mood of making a lot of Clair Obscur videos, so if you like these, I would really appreciate if you told me. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Oh, Gustave. You're the loudest.
Really? Hey.
Come on. Don't be shy.
Get out of my way!
Jeez, tu pochino va, parino.
No. It's the password.
Rico femicola, gor granda bari bombino, passwordito. Gomiku rapito sava.